Zombie. Awesome fight. Been waiting to see it for a long time. It's been rebooked for the last year. I think it was December last year. It was meant to be in South Korea. Is that right? I think it was in Seoul.
Yeah.
December.
UFC Boozing or Buzzing, whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, that fight's finally happening, we hope. There's one thing that I'm not up to. I don't think this fight's going to happen until I see them in the octagon, right? And especially because Hannah Gracie tested positive for COVID, who's Brian Ortega's head coach, jiu-jitsu coach, and he's no longer flying over with him to take the fight. But he had COVID and went through it, came back negative, and now he's come back positive, and then he's come back negative against today. So let's all pray that Ortega hasn't got it himself, and we finally get to see this fight.
Yeah, well, the good thing about Abu Dhabi is they tend to the testing before they even get on the plane, so you're getting warning that someone might pull out, a week in advance. Whereas sometimes in Vegas they seem to test positive on the night or the day before. So I do think it's a better way of controlling the environment and how many people are going to actually pop. I think once in Saudi Arabia, the likelihood of them popping is quite unlikely. So hopefully it's okay. It seems to be going that way, and I'm very glad to see Brian Ortega back finally. I think it's been about 2 years now. So I'm very interested to see what he comes back like. But it's hard not to pick Korean Zombie in this one for me because he's been active. He's been winning. I think he looked good. Other than getting caught with an elbow in the last second against Yair Rodriguez, he's on a long win streak besides that. So I've got to pick him in this one. Brian Ortega's been away. I don't know what he's been doing. So I'm just interested more than anything to see how he looks.
I am the opposite. I'm taking Ortega in this one, and I'll tell you why. He's had that loss to Holloway. He got smashed. There's no denying it. He just got outdone in that one. He claims he couldn't use his grappling because of an injury in his leg or something, but how factual that is, we don't know. But regardless of that, he got beaten in that fight, and before that, he's looked pretty perfect. Some of his fights, he'll get beaten up, and then he finds some finish. Look at the Swanson fight. He was I wouldn't say he was losing on the feet, but he was taking some shots. As soon as he got into clinching range, he grabbed onto the neck, and he locked up an anaconda choke. If there was 20 seconds longer, 15 seconds longer in that first round, he would have got the tap then. Comes back to the feet. Same kind of scenario happens. He puts Cub on the cage and he chokes him out unconscious with the guillotine. And I think that's going to be what he's going to look to do in this fight, right? He's going to look to clinch with Korean Zombie and look for a choke. Because if he sits there and does a kickboxing match against Korean Zombie, he's going to lose. Let's be honest. He seems to have improved in his striking. He's got a whole new set of coaches. His only returning coach is Henna, but that's his jiu-jitsu coach. And maybe having Henna not in his corner might be a disadvantage, mentally, not having his best friend and his coach in his corner. But let's hope not. Let's hope he comes in his best form. And I think at his best form, he can beat Korean Zombie. And I expect it'll be by submission.
Well, it's interesting because when people take a couple of years off, it's usually because of injury. But I'm not sure what type of injuries he's had. And I think he's been waiting to get back in there for a while now. So I hope he's been working on stuff, and obviously the Max Holloway defeat is a tough one to take because it's not like Max was unbeatable because we've seen Volkanovski go on and do that. So he'll be hopefully he's been working on stuff, but I think his way to victory is what you just said. He's got to grab onto something. I think he's got to withstand the early storm from Korean Zombie. He's got to be able to take the power, and then eventually he's just got to grab onto something and try and drag this fight to the mat. But I think we've seen Zombie is a good jiu-jitsu guy himself because he pulled off a twister back in the day, didn't he? So it's an interesting fight. It's one we've been waiting for so long, and I'll be very excited once it actually comes to fruition. And then once it's over, finally it's over. Let's move on and let's get these both guys active again, fighting other people, and probably the winner of this goes to a title shot. So very interesting times, very high stakes.
Yeah, and I went back today and I watched a bunch of their fights, both guys. And one thing that struck to me was Korean Zombie fighting Jose Aldo. And that was his last 5-round fight from memory that went full 5 rounds, or went 4 rounds. And the big thing I noticed in that, the first round he came out and he was very, very reserved. He wasn't explosive like he had been previously. And him and Aldo kind of just traded back and forth. Aldo seemed to be getting the better of him. But by the 3rd round, Aldo could take him down at will. He had nothing in the terms of wrestling to stop Aldo from taking him down. So I think if we get to the third round, and Ortega could probably take him down and find a submission there, he's going to be very dangerous in those initial goings, though. I mean, look at what he did to Frankie Edgar. He caught Frankie Edgar, dropped him, almost finished him. Edgar back to his feet, dropped him again, finished him. Not that you can't say the same for Ortega. Ortega finished Edgar as well, but I think that Korean Zombie did it more decisively and in more impressive fashion. I'm excited for this fight. I'm taking Ortega, but I'm not counting Korean Zombie out. I think he can definitely win this one, and it'll be interesting to see.
Well, the last time we seen Ortega, he was the easiest man to hit in the world. He was like, a Homer Simpson, just getting punched in the face and eating everything. And with all due respect to Max Holloway, he's not the biggest puncher, so you can afford that. Korean Zombie's one of the biggest punchers at 145, so how does Ortega stand up to that? Can he be eating punches? How long can he take them for? And then once he's done that, can he come back and still be at top of his game in terms of jiu-jitsu and dragging this fight to the mat? I do think it is a tale of, he should be getting it done down the wire, whereas Zombie will want to get it done early. But I just don't like it when guys go away for so long and then you come back, and I just never feel confident in picking them. So as much as I am a massive Ortega fan, and I hope he does well on his Saturday, is it? So I hope he does well, but it's a tough ask to come back into this fight. I think he could have come back into an easier fight, and it just shows you what a game guy he is. But it doesn't mean it's going to be an easy night. So I am going Korean Zombie, but good luck to both men.
Absolutely. Let's hope we just see the fight. That's the main thing. Aside from this, on the card, we got a couple of big fights on here. I mean, the one that strikes me straight away is Caitlyn Chukagian versus Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade's first move up to bantamweight or is it flyweight? It's flyweight. Move up to flyweight. Yeah. Flyweight, and she's taking on number 1 ranked contender. So she gets a win here. I'm assuming it's straight into a title shot next. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. I think it's a good move for Andrade as well, because I think she was competing at 135 for a while, I think. She was competing at 135 for a while, I think, against the bigger girls, and she was struggling. And then she was at 125. But anyway, she was up high, and then she moved down, and she looked great. But then when you get finished like that by the champ, where'd you go from there? Like, there's no real route back to a title shot. Even if she beat Rose last time out, I don't think she was getting another shot. So I think this is the move, and I think flyweight is wide open. I think Jessica Andrade, in terms of contenders for that title against Valentina, she's a cut above the rest. I think she's better than Caitlyn Chukagian. I think she's better than the JoJo Calderwoods and Jennifer Myers. I think she is a level above it. So I'd be very happy to see her get a win here and challenge Valentina, because I think it'd be her toughest test in a while. I think she'd put it on her, and it'd be a great fight.
I expect to see Andrade finish Chukagian in this, but it really depends on which Chukagian we get, right? Because she's been the striker in the past, and then in her last fight, she was the grappler and just demolished Antonina Shevchenko. But you can't really compare Andrade with Antonina Shevchenko. They're on different levels in both their striking and their grappling. And I think if Chukagian decides to take Andrade down, Andrade's probably pretty comfortable there, because she does have decent jiu-jitsu, and I don't know if she really wants to be doing that. But on the feet, I expect to see Andrade land something big and put her away. I want to say early, but who knows in this one.
Yeah, I expect her to get her. I do think Caitlyn's a really good fighter. I just think there is levels to this game, and I think that 125 division, there's just, she's obviously you can do that against someone like Shevchenko, Antonia Shevchenko, but there is a couple of levels that she needs to get to be at Jessica Andrade's level, in my opinion. I think Jessica Andrade's been a contender for so long. I don't think she's actually fought a flyweight before, so I do think this is kind of the perfect weight for her, because she is so big, she is so strong. I think there was even some complaints that she's too big and strong for strawweight, and people were, complaining. Even fighters were complaining about how big she was. So this is kind of a perfect middle ground. The flyweight division is quite new. 135 is too big, 115 is too small. Let's see how she does. I think this is a perfect weight, and I think we're going to see her look better than ever.
Let's hope so. We've got a couple of good fights in here, but before I move down the lineup, I just want to point out Cyril Gaines fighting in the co-main event against Ante Delesia. I don't know who that is, so I'm not going to focus on him at all. But I'm super keen to see Cyril Gane again. Very interesting heavyweight because he's not this one-shot power puncher. He's more of like a volume striker, and he's got that grappling background as well. He pulled off that heel hook in his last fight. I think it was one before. But he pulled off that heel hook. He's a really well-rounded fighter, so I'm excited to see him back in again.
Yeah, I hear the hype all the time about Cyril Gane. I'm not too sold on him yet. I want to see him moving through the ranks. I guess this guy's a UFC debutant just because I've never heard of him before as well. So I think this is going to be a showcase fight, and then he's going to move on. And I heard someone saying online, Gane against Aspinall would be a good fight as well. So I want to see him taking them steps up. I know he's got the Tanner Bosa win on his record, but you want to see progression. You want to see people pushing forward, not taking these steps back. So hopefully he can get a nice win here. Probably a viral knockout or a viral submission, something like that, and then on to big names. And heavyweight isn't the most stacked division, so as we were saying about Aspinall before, he wants to take his time. That's fair enough, but at some point you've got to take the jump. And once you beat Arlovsky, as we've seen, you beat Arlovsky and then you beat someone else, and then you're top 5. So it's not that hard to be a heavyweight contender, and I want to see him go through the ranks quickly. I think he's talented enough. He's 30 years old, so he's not like he's too young. MMA's just come to France as well, so he's a guy who could potentially headline in a Paris event or somewhere like that. So I want to see him make a statement and then move on.
Hey, you said something there that really I agree with. I didn't even think of it. Aspinall versus Gane makes a lot of sense because Aspinall just beat his training partner. I don't know if you noticed, Cyril Gane was in the corner of that fight. Aspinall just won. So that's a good storyline. They can start working there. Cyril Gane gets a win here. Even if he gets a loss here, you do the Aspinall versus Gane fight. I like that. But yeah, otherwise on the card we've got Australian Jim Croot versus Medeskus Bakauskis, who we saw him in his last fight. He looked pretty good in that one. And Jim Croot in his last fight, I think he pulled off a submission. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was a Kimura. But he got to win his last fight as well. So these two guys both coming off wins. Really excited to see this one.
It's a really good fight. It reminds me of the Zalal fight from the weekend where it's two really young guys. I think Croot's 24, Medeskus is about 25, maybe 26 now, but he's still very young himself. I think Medeskus is getting a tough introduction to the UFC. They're not giving him easy fights. I thought Michailidis, he was really well, fancied from Greece. I think he was in Europe, and it was a much tougher fight than he was originally anticipated to have. And now he goes straight to Jimmy Croot. And then once you beat Jimmy Croot, where'd you go from there? It just seems to me like you fringe top 15 then. And obviously I'm picking Medeskus. He's one of our guys, but not only that, is that he looks sensational as late. I haven't seen anything from his game that tells me that he's going to lose this one. He looked perfect last fight. He's very explosive. He's got all this power. He told me I think he's going for a second round knockout, so I'd go with that. But Jimmy Croot's a serious guy himself, and he's 24, and he'll be thinking the same thing. He'll be thinking, I can beat this guy who's got all this hype. He's a Cage Warriors champion. He's come in. He's got a brilliant knockout. If I beat him, then I'm fringe top 15, and he's already got wins over Paul Craig and Sam Alvey. So he's probably beat better guys than Medeskus has, so he'll fancy himself coming into this one. It's a really good fight, and I do love it when they match two young contenders against each other because, let's see. And they can always do this fight again down the line. There's no reason why whoever loses in this fight won't come back and get towards the title when the other guy's holding the title. So it's just, I love these fights, and I think it's a great fight to have on the card.
I'm taking Jimmy Croot in this one just because his sole loss on his record. He's been perfect otherwise from the Peruvian necktie he got caught in against Misha Serkinov. And that's he was winning that fight for that whole round that it went for until he got caught in that submission. So to me, it seems like a bit of bad luck. However, I haven't seen much of Medeskus Bakauskis, but in his last fight, he looked really good. So I don't know who's going to win this one because both guys are so good, and I haven't seen his record. Is Medeskus got losses, or is he on a win streak, or what's the situation?
I think he's got a couple. I think it's like 10-2, 11-2, but it's right. When you're this young, you're gonna take these losses. So I think anyone who's going back and watching Medeskus Bakauskis from three years ago is not watching Medeskus Bakauskis. You're watching a shadow of himself, And I'm sure it's the same with Jimmy Croot. When they're this young and they're developing this fastly, every fight it's a new fighter basically. So I wouldn't even, consider them losses as sudden. Just go and watch his last few performances in Cage Warriors. He was handling wrestlers. Everyone was coming to wrestle him, and he's handling, easily, and then he's getting the knockouts as well. So this is what you want to see, and I think it's the same for Jimmy. He'll be wanting, that fight was a couple losses ago, so it is more. I mean, a couple of fights ago. So it is more relevant. It is UFC caliber, but I do think they're just good. This is just going to be the best versions of themselves, and they'll go on and be even better. So it's a great fight.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this one. Is there any other fights on the card you want to touch on, or we'll jump into some news?
So where have we got? Is Thomas Almeida back? So Thomas Almeida's back, which is we haven't seen him for it's nearly 3 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's an interesting one. He seems to have moved up to featherweight. At one point he was very highly touted. He's considered to be the next guy at 135, and then Cody Garbrandt got his hands on him, and then a couple more losses after that. But he's an interesting one, especially at 145, and then we've got the I'm terrible with name, but Mateus Gamrot. He was the KSW champion who's got a bit of hype. I think he was a double champion going in, so he's got some hype behind him. Julian Robinson's on the card, who are quite like, and then also James Krause, who has again stepped up at the last minute to accept the fight as well. So it's a good card, and I think obviously the main event is far and away the best fight on the card, but you've got some good, interesting fights on the undercard, a bit of mix of old timers and new prospects. It's a good card.
Yeah, and one fight I will point out before we move on is Jamie Malachy from Australia. I think he's from Sydney, from memory, or Melbourne, from over east. He's taking on Fares Ziam. Not sure who that is, but in Jamie Malachy's last fight was at the Adesanya vs Whitaker card, 243, or I don't know, whatever one that one was. And he fought Brad Riddell, and it was just a 3-round war, and both guys were exhausted and bloodied. It was an awesome fight. So hopefully we see something very similar here, or he gets a spectacular knockout. Who knows? But that's a name to watch out for on this card. But with that, I think we'll jump onto some news.